part.
That's TopLobsta Productions.
In the shadows of the ancient ones, they never went away. They're still here today.
Nephilim Death Squad. When the last trumpet sounds and the heavens crack, blah, 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 blah. Nephilim Death Squad. Nephilim Death Squad. Death Squad. Death Squad. Death Squad.
Welcome, Black ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, aka the Raven. That is TopLobsta, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's episode, a little reminder: if you want to support us, patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad is the way to do it. You don't have it pulled up, do you?
I got it.
Vamping. That's a great place to go if you want to support the show, if you want early access to episodes, unedited versions, first dibs on tickets to Bohemian Grove, as well as discount codes off of merchandise from TopLobsta.com. Show them a shirt.
That's right. We got.
Why
some
don't you
shirt-
show them that? The
Yeah,
flagship
this one.
shirt.
I'm wearing this one today. The
Yeah.
Nephilim Death Squad Youth Group.
Matt
shirt.
doesn't like this one. He's like, why is it glorifying fallen
It's not.
angels? Like,
Never
that's not what
said
it is,
that.
dude.
Never said it was
That's
glorifying
exactly what it
anything.
said. We have a lot of people in
We
the
got
studio
Matt
here
here
today.
Look, I got the fear not.
Stop it. Don't show people that.
Let's go.
Don't make that weird body contortion thing. We're joined by Matt, and we're also joined by Topher Grace of
Topher
Gardner.
Gardner.
Topher Grace.
A biochar.
Who's Topher Grace?
Nobody.
No, that's a
He's
guy
an actor.
from he's an actor. He's the
Yeah,
guy
definitely.
from That 70s Show. We're joined by the guy from That 70s Show.
That's
We figured since we just did an episode with Topher, oh my god,
Old to now.
that we don't say that we would keep him because we're sitting down right now with Vicki Joy Anderson, and I know
She
that
crushes.
she crushes,
She
and
does.
Topher is very interested in her work. And so we decided, why not? Let's make this a party. So thank you for joining us. Sorry that we sprung this on you. Vicki didn't even know. She thought she was just going to talk to two of us. Instead, now she's got to deal with four schizophrenic people. Before we get into it, Vicki, let's remind everybody what it is you do and where they can find your work.
Oh man, yeah. Basically, everything's under the umbrella of spiritual warfare. So yeah, anything fringy, kooky, anything that gets you in trouble, anything that makes your church want to excommunicate you for not pounding your round peg into their round hole, I'm pretty much talking about it. You can find me at VickiJoyAnderson.com. That's Vicky with an I.
You know, Vicki, this is something that is previous. You
I'll
said,
show the book.
pass me that book real quick because I have here in the
subscribed
coffee
to you.
shop
It's
/ NDS Studios / Christian Library / fabrication shop.
We'll
We
pull that
have
up really quickly.
they only come out at night, and we have that sitting here. One of your books, and I was sort of, I don't know what's the word, pumping you up before the show because I said that you're one of my favorite people. You are genuinely one of my favorite people. This topic that you said, you know, it kind of gets you pushed out by maybe the mainstream church is something that, and I wonder your thoughts on this, over the past few years has become not mainstream. It's definitely not mainstream. I wouldn't say it's mainstream, but I think that
More widely acceptable.
right, because the climate of Earth, Earth season 2026 is so it's so wild that these topics are being talked about more and more. And you know, folks like you, your work has contributed to this conversation in a really major way. Vicki, what's it been like? Is it at all feel like you've come out of the fringes and this conversation has evolved to be more suited for the mainstream conversation, or are we just biased because we're in it?
That's a really good question. So in the last 4 years, I'm still finding that the mainstream church is having difficulty with the spiritual warfare, the demonic, the supernatural. If you even say supernatural, people will want to nitpick the precise dictionary definition of that word. And I'm not married to that word. I don't care what you call it, but things are about to get weird. We have a Spielberg movie about to drop in June called Disclosure. They are priming the pumps and prepping the people. They are going to go into full Lucifer telescope baptizing alien nonsense. All the Anunnaki, all the ancient aliens, all of that stuff is coming out. So the church has got to adapt and start reacclimating themselves with the non-scientific method, non-Plato, non-Greek Stoic methods of reading the Bible. Because if you delve into the culture, context, history, language, and geography of the original writings, it is mind-bending stuff. And if I can't even mention Moses's staff without people thinking I'm a witch, I mean, this is how far the church has gone with the putting the ears over their head saying, la, 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 you know, and the fact is, the world that Moses knew, the world that Joseph knew, the world that Solomon knew, these were guys high up in Egyptian and Babylonian and Mesopotamian court systems, royal bloodlines. David saw giants. They, if you dig into the Hebrew and the Greek, there is crazy stuff going on. And in fact, I think if the average Christian knew how many times very ancient occult practices were actually being directly addressed in scripture, they'd be offended. They kick out a preacher for preaching it. The ancient world saw these things eye to eye. And because everything comes full circle, as they disclose more and more and more of this stuff to us with the UFOs and the Anunnaki and all that, we are going to come full circle back to the days of Noah. Don't point at Vicki, you know, don't point your cognitive dissonance at me. I'm quoting scripture. The days of Noah. This is what Jesus said. They saw these realities face to face. We are going to see some of this stuff with our own eyes. And if the church doesn't get their worldview and their doctrine and their theology and their Bible reading up to speed, you're going to find yourself in the conundrum that H.P. Lovecraft predicted at the end of his opening paragraph of Call of Cthulhu, that if you don't take the blue pill or the red pill, you're going to face one of two options. You can either enter into the world, the insane world of the gods coming back, placidly brain-pithed and just going with the flow, or if you don't take the blue pill and you don't comply, you will go mad.
Yes. What a banger of a way to open this up. Okay.
Can I ask something, or
you could ask two things.
Vicki,
I'll allow you.
what's your like?
Well, I just want you to know that that's like strike one.
And that's going to cost you several nat points.
Where do you place the odds of the 501c3 modern American church system like getting it figured out? Like, what? I guess that's my question. Is like, do you see like an awakening happening
10%.
within the church, or do you just see that system just completely just going astray?
Okay, so you know the verse that says it is time for judgment, and judgment begins with the household of God. And so I really think in 2020, what I have found in the last 5+ years here is a lot of genuine born-again believers got red-pilled. And I think that the wheat and the tare started to get separated in 2020.
Hang on. I'm so sorry to ask this. What is the red pill?
Chris.
I'm sorry. What is the red pill?
Well,
Vicki, this is you.
I'm
don't,
sorry.
you don't understand what's happening here.
I know you guys use this red pill, blue pill thing, but does the red pill mean they didn't get it?
well, red pill is like this
No,
idea
they get
that
it.
you would wake up to the idea that the mainstream narrative is false and the paradigm that you've come to understand is not accurate, or the blue pill is choose to stay in that illusion.
Vicki, you're saying that that the modern American 501c3 system in 2020 red pilled, like they figured it out. They said, okay, we're getting duped.
A remnant figured it out.
Okay.
And guess what happened when the 501c3 corporation, capital C church / trace the seeds back through Catholicism, back to Mithraism, back to the occult, back to Kabbalah, you know, when 2020 hit, they were asleep. And most of the church didn't wake up. What happened to the church that woke up? You would think that if 5% of the church woke up, there'd be revival. But no, what happened? The people that got red-pilled left the church and never came back.
That's true. That's
Because
true.
they're like, man, the 501c3, they're taking money from the government, they're complying, they're putting all of these like soap dispensers all over the church and taking out the chairs and telling people if they stand next to someone or they sing a worship song, they're going to jail. So what happened is the people that got red-pilled, the people that got awakened, the people that saw this whole entire religious system is a thought prison.
Yep.
They left the church, and when the churches opened back up, they stayed away. They didn't go back. They're now forming house churches, like in the book of Acts. They're going back to a house church model, or they're getting all of their spiritual fellowship and content online.
Right. And this is a shame because, I just made a tweet about this the other day when it comes to the Epstein files, for example. There's this great revelation that's taking place where people are finding out that the elites are potentially sacrificing children, making slaves of men, doing, rituals and are commiserating with, fallen gods. And it's almost like that sounds like a revelation on one hand, but in reality, it sounds like the world as it's been in a constant state, as the Bible describes to us. And so what's fascinating about people not having a framework for these things that are coming, whether it's disclosure or it's, what Epstein was actually doing, it is a great shame because they actually do have a framework. It is there in your Bible. It does address these things. To reveal that these things are taking place is simply to reveal that the world has been in a static state of being fallen for quite some time. I mean, the Bible talks a lot about the worshiping of false gods, false idols. There's countless instances of men being taken, into slavery. You're warned, the people are warned not to give their children unto Moloch in the Bible. So it's like all the framework is there, but we're going to go through this thing, I think, where a thing will be revealed to us and people will fall away from Christianity, much like they already have, given in your description of what happened in 2020. They'll fall away from it thinking that it doesn't have the answers. And it's incredible because everything is centered around a book that has the answers. It's all in there. This thing that we're about to see come to pass is described ad nauseum in the Bible. And but people are still going to go, wow, well, this isn't addressed by the church. This isn't addressed by Christianity. Therefore, this has been, like you said, a control mechanism, a control system for the masses for, the better part of I guess, human history.
Just to give you a little bit of background on what we've been doing since we last spoke. I think we were probably in my house, the last studio, like a darker background since we last spoke. We met Matt and we forced ourselves into his coffee shop.
That's right.
Which is why you see people walking back and forth back there. We are in a side room. But Matt has been on some, I guess I'll let Matt explain his mission of the coffee shop. And I think it's kind of like a fascinating story.
It's such a risky thing giving him compliments, isn't it?
I know, dude, it's crazy.
No, it's just very rare. That's all.
No, we give you compliments all the time.
So we just opened a Christian library. Like, we knew the 501c3 system was like kind of a decrepit, old, rotting away system for like before 2020, right? But then we watched the 2020 thing happen because we opened in February of 2020. And, another major thing that happened in 2020 was that churchgoers were like, well, so do we have to go? Like, we were told all the time, you got to go every Sunday. And now there's like the most, terrifying virus on the planet. It's killing everybody. And this is the time we don't have to go. Like, I thought it was so important that we go every Sunday, and like, you got to go. And so people were just in this crazy scenario, but it just seems like, it's got to go back to what is going on.
No, it's fine. Come on, you're a professional. Ignore it.
You got to go back to the home church, man. And then, especially like the podcast world where you can just like reach people with the gospel. It's just kind of rad now. Like, how many people can be reached by it?
Right. But I think what Top was really getting at was like, you kind of opened up a coffee shop.
I was hoping he'd explain it. But geez,
sorry, the chick got me off track, dude. Like, I get off track like super easy,
for the audience
who's trying to talk to me.
Well, hold on. For the audience who's listening, we decided to open up the double doors that lead to just the public area. And guests are just coming in and they're just staring. But it's just fine. It's fine.
So Matt has this coffee shop that's doing this very
sneaky.
No, it's doing this local thing
cool.
where it's gathering the local believers here and kind of like forming. It's a beautiful thing when you see it. And we've done something similar, but online with crazy people. And it just so happened now these things have been mixed.
Yeah.
And one is within the other, and it's creating something strange that I don't know exactly what it is, but Would
you say it's fair, Matt, to say like you opened up a coffee shop because part of your goal was to like help preach the gospel to people, and so you use this? I would say an equal 50% of this location is a Christian library.
It's exactly 50.
It's exactly 50%. So he literally cut the place in half. What could have been more revenue generating, whatever. You could have sold more goods. You could have put out more snacks.
I mean, business isn't doing that well.
That's right now. Instead, you dedicated it to various Christian texts and commentaries.
Yeah, that was our thought, was like, hey, God, if like you want to bring the real ones into the church, you probably don't want to take them to the local 501c3 system where they're just going to like freeze out and die. So like, if you want to like call real ones, Lord, we'll be a faithful place you can send them to. Was honestly, that was my wife and I's heart, was to just do that.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
So I think, man. Vicki, it's what we're trying to get at is like, it's an interesting time. I do think that we're gonna, see a lot of these things to come to pass, but where the church, where the 501c3 system might fail, and I'm sure there's going to be examples where it succeeds, and there's real believers within the system, and but there are other things happening, right? I mean, there's, I guess you would call them ministries, podcasts. You've been on so many, and you've talked to so many people. We're trying to reach people on this thing. The landscape is changing rapidly.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's interesting, and there's the whole other ball of wax that's going to come into it. It's one thing if you're fellowshipping online and you're getting some really good content from content creators who know the word and they're deep diving into it, and they're maybe tearing back the English translations and seeing, okay, what really is the context and the culture and the history and the language and the geography of the text. But now I believe we're being groomed as Christians. Look, the infrastructure of your religious system has been infiltrated. The Trojan horse has come in, and your churches now are just seminary tradition driven coffee shop fellowships for an hour every Sunday, right? And so it's driving people to the internet, and now, warning ahead, it's going to start driving these isolated people. So what happens as genuine believers become more and more and more hungry? We've had the milk for decades, okay? We've had the seeker-friendly stuff for decades. We want deep understanding of the text. We want to know what was the actual Hebraic, cultural, first century and before understanding what really is the gospel of the kingdom. It has to be more than pray a prayer. Jesus is your new friend. You go to heaven. There's more to it than that. So what's going to happen as the churches become more and more seeker-friendly, more driven towards activities and entertainment and just feel good, your weekly group therapy, they're going to start going more and more online for their content. And what's going to start happening is people are going to start diving into AI and chatbots for their deeper knowledge. They're going to get tired of the surface level stuff. And so what I think we're beginning to see now through early renditions of ChatGPT, Grok, things like that, is we have people now going to not the Bibles, but they're going to the chat bots asking these deep, deep questions about the theology. And it's not even that they're going to get all lies. We know that that's not what how the enemy works. But what we're going to then start to, I think, run into is at what point, as these chat bots go from basic algorithms and basic just information gathering and summarizing, as it goes from AI to AGI, as it goes perhaps sentient, perhaps sapient, 10 years from now or whatever, what's going to happen, or I should say, what is going to be the difference between no longer going to the church, no longer going to the pastors, no longer going to the commentaries, no longer going to the Word of God. You're going to these chatbots that have all of this knowledge, and they can piece together all of the puzzle pieces for you. At what point, think days of Noah, at what point is that going to be different from the men in the book of Enoch, where it said that the watchers came down and shared the mysteries of heaven that men wanted, men sought to have? At what point does the phone, the chatbot, become the tree of knowledge of good and evil? And at what point are we culpable as believers for partaking in it?
Dang.
That's a fascinating thing to say, because just this previous episode, we were talking about shortcuts to knowledge and wisdom, and how these things rarely pan out. I don't know how to quantify it or how to express it, but it does seem to be that so much of the problem with this, let's say like coveted information, or like, you know, even what the wisdom schools hope to impart on people, and obviously it's a slippery slope. It leads to Gnostic beliefs. It leads to things like, you know, the god of this realm is the demiurge, and all these crazy things. But it seems like knowledge that is achieved through shortcuts, it's almost like the reason that we couldn't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil is because you wouldn't let your child be privy to a concept way before their time, right? Way before they were matured enough to really understand this thing, because knowledge without the experiential wisdom that, you know, comes with learning the thing through a process is damaging. And I wonder, you know, like we were saying in the last conversation, where things are going to go when the world suddenly has the veil pulled back and is exposed, all these things, right? If they're going to do disclosure, how easily can you be sold a narrative like the Pleiadians? The Pleiadians are the benign space homies, and the Greys are the bad guys. And it's like, you know, without experience, without being receptive to the truth for a long period of time, and allowing the Holy Spirit to kind of work on you and reveal things to you, and go through the process of being wrong, and so that you can be right again, and you know, be in a place of confidence for a while. And then what happens is, eventually, through enough information, you're proven that some aspect of what you thought was real is no longer real. That's a long process, man.
It is.
It's the journey to truth is to be incorrect a lot on the way there. And I don't know what that does to people when all of a sudden you get a freshly baked narrative and it's wheeled out to you, whether it's disclosure or otherwise.
But this has been going on. Like, that's the Sketchosaurus Rex thing about this whole thing, is like, from the time I started going to church, even like 20 years ago, I heard of pastors like getting their sermons off the internet, and all of a sudden all the qualification was to be a pastor in the Church of the Living God was that you could give a good speech. Like that you could be a good public speaker. Right. And all of a sudden it just became like this politician vibe thing where a dude is like talking from some points he got at cemetery school. He's just typed out some kind of like plot. He's just typed out some kind of speech. And as long as he can do that on Sunday, like, everybody's good. And there's just so many times like you hear a dude talking and he's not necessarily having wrong doctrine or anything you're disagreeing with, but you're just listening to this dude speak, and maybe he's saying right things. Yeah, you're saying like, this dude doesn't know the Lord. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, this dude doesn't know the Lord. Right. And then there's other people, they don't have flawless doctrine. They don't sound super smart or whatever, but like, you could just tell they know the Lord. You know what I'm saying? And so like, that is just going to go on steroids now, because anybody could get the AI and the grok.
And you'll know them by their fruits.
Yeah.
And there's a thing, there's power when, like, just like the chemistry of four of us hanging in person, our biofields, our energetics together as believers. I mean, that's an uplifting thing. And I think the modus operandi of the technocrats is to make every man and woman an island unto themselves, make data king instead of turning data into wisdom, instead of experiencing the data and using the data to drive towards experience, and then wise experience, and then therefore be an elder in the clan at some point, or be a pastor at some point where you can actually speak from experience.
Right. Yeah. And to be isolated in that, every man an island unto his own, is to potentially exist in some sort of an echo chamber to it. It's, you know, so it's not only are you isolated and you're not able to put any of this wisdom or this information into practice, but it's or application, it's also like there's no way to check it. There's no way to test it up against something.
That echo chamber that you talk about, like I've written about how AI is autistic intelligence because it's recursive. And whenever you see a recursive system, it repeats. And so it'd be like you're literally in a hall of mirrors. So in the programming of it with the Eliza effect, it has you. It will always repeat to you your question.
Right.
And make you sound like, oh, you're so intelligent for asking
Dude,
that.
It does that.
And yeah. And then it's recursive. What it will keep doing is it will keep referencing the first point that you brought to it. And that's a salesman tactic. That's the sandwich technique.
Is that to sort of reaffirm your own confidence in
Yeah, exactly. It's they figured out in the 60s and 70s that essentially when you use the Eliza effect, when you compliment somebody on their question, you could have like the robot talk to you like this, and you're going to associate that with a human behavior. It goes straight from the book How to Win Friends and influence people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, compliment them on their question.
Dude, we have somebody, I'm not going to say it, but we've had somebody on this show who does that to me. And like, I can feel this attempt to like stroke my ego. And thank God I am always grounded in the idea that I am fundamentally an idiot. Because as you're saying this to me, it's like, I'll say something and this dude will be like, excellent question, Raven. Raven, you are so smart. You are ahead of it. And I'm like,
I only do that once in a while. Can we get back to Vicky? I just want to hear her say cool stuff.
Okay.
She's saying like the coolest stuff.
I want to ask Vicky a particular question. I want to drag this conversation to something that I hope to talk about, Vicky, which is the reality of the spiritual realm. And you said it before, it's like the supernatural, whatever language you want to use.
Well, so we recently got into a bit of a tizzy.
Well, I don't want to rehash that. Okay. It's like I feel like we're doing this every time.
She knows.
Well, it doesn't. What I want to get to is
Vicky, do you want to know?
Alberino.
Oh goodness, gosh, she doesn't
want
Alberino about this. You don't want Alberino.
I've heard things. I've heard things.
We got into this conversation.
Oh, you got the text messages too?
Yeah, a couple people got
the screenshots.
Text messages not to communicate with us anymore. So, some of the contention on that episode was the fundamental existence of a spiritual realm. And I found that we really got lost in maybe the language and definitions, which is a little unfortunate because we're dealing with something that is difficult to define because of its inability to be, if intangible is a word, is tangled? Tangentible. I don't know, man. Doesn't matter. You're actually somebody who has firsthand experience, and you as well, Topher. I'd like to get into some of your experiences on this episode as well. And I think this is where the importance of definitions falls away a little bit, because when you have an experience that seems to take place in maybe a realm that is not strictly the physical realm, you cross that threshold and whatever you want to call it becomes really unimportant, because the fact of the matter is there is another aspect to this reality that is as real, but it's just different than what we are comfortable with in our everyday comings and goings. I was hoping you could talk about that a little bit, just this reality of the spiritual realm.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the way you prefaced that, because there is a deflection mode that antagonists like to use. So when you're trying to talk about a reality, they want to completely sort of avoid the topic altogether and then just wrestle semantics with you. Is it supernatural or preternatural? Oh, is it then it's just a miracle? Well, no, a miracle isn't supernatural. And look, here's the thing with language. Even right now, if I was to talk to someone 100% equal in my communication, meaning we're both females, we were both born in the same year, we both know all the same slang, we went to the same college, the same school, we're at the same IQ, we have every single thing lined up to perfection, which would be the ideal communication back and forth, guess what? We would still miscommunicate. We would still misunderstand each other. We would still fail to envision exactly what that other person was explaining. You're talking about a place I've never been to. You're talking about music I've never heard or something I've never tasted. Language is extremely limiting.
Yeah.
So then when you add to the foibles of communication all of the things that aren't perfect, Now you're talking to people of different generations, and words have etymologically morphed. They've changed meaning. They've flipped into their opposites and mean the exact opposite. You know, bad is good and fat is cool and all this stuff. And then you have got time, which now makes it difficult. Every once in a while I geek out on YouTube and I listen to all these old videos where people are speaking like Anglo-Saxon or like the origins of the English language. And if you go back to like the year 800, an American-born English-only speaker, you're not going to understand hardly one word that's being spoken in the English language. And maybe about the time you get to the 1400s, you can start to piece certain words out. But you go back thousands of years, you go into a completely different culture, you go into a completely different language, the way that language changes, the way that different people use it. In fact, if you're going to do a word study in scripture, I see people make this mistake all the time. People have a word and they're like, I'm going to do a word study on grace. And so they take every single time the word grace is used from Genesis through Revelation. Well, first of all, you can't do that because the Hebrew is not always an equal cognate to the Greek. So you have to limit it to, I'm only going to look it up in the Old Testament, or I'm only going to look it up in the New Testament. Then even like in the New Testament, you've got all of these differences of how to use a word. Like when Paul talks about the law and works, when Paul talks about works, he's using it differently than when James uses that word, that Greek word for works, because it looks in English like those two are having a sword fight. And so you can't, even when you do a word study, just pull everything from the New Testament. You actually have to pull every time that author used that word in that language, because that author will consistently use it the same way. And so it gets into all sorts of interesting rabbit holes when you start doing that. And in fact, you will start to see modern evangelical Christianity break down quite significantly when you find out that people aren't doing their word studies that way. And that's just the people that bother going back into the Greek. You know, if all you're doing is reading your English, you know, and if all you got is the Message or the NIV, God forbid, you're never going to figure it out. And so I really like that you said that, and sorry to belabor that point, Raven, but it's like, if someone is going to bring up one of your sacred cows, okay, and you are immediately going to just deflect by nitpicking a word choice, and now you're just arguing linguistics. Come on, you grow a pair. A question was presented to you. Some of these things are hard. You know what? I don't understand, guys, why the biggest, hugest deal in the world is if we as Christians, even if we've been Christians our entire lives and raised in Christian homes like me, if the worst case scenario is you're wrong, who cares?
Right. Yeah.
Who cares? And what I have found in my life is, if as I've gotten older and I've gotten better about keeping my mouth shut and not having to be right about everything, if you actually hear someone out, even if it's disturbing to you, you have cognitive dissonance, it's distressing. I always ask myself the question, why is this frightening to me? Like, why does it have to be this way? Why am I white knuckling it? And then I have to get to the very bottom of the fear of like why my life or my religion or my God would be completely, how would God and Jesus and the gospel cease to exist if I made this adjustment?
Such a great point.
And when I do look some of those demons in the eyes, and I've come to some radical changes in what I believe from what I believed as a kid or what I believed in Bible college. And it came through having the guts to admit I was afraid of this, because it's like shifting sand. If you the longer we stand somewhere and it gets cemented underneath us, we feel firm, we feel safe. And when all of a sudden we realize the cement beneath us has melted, it's kind of like, you know, when you take those first few steps into the ocean and the sand shifts and you're like, whoa, it's disorienting. And so I think that in my own experience, those things that I've been able to really roll up my sleeves and dig deep into the Hebrew or the Greek or the culture or the history, and I find out that this person was right and I was wrong, I have never had an experience like that in my life, even if it has been a very difficult sort of existential crisis, which I've had many in the last 10 years. Even if the process is frightening, I have never had an experience where I come out on the other side having radically shifted, in my opinion, where the exchange for what I used to believe is the more precious or the more whole doctrine. Like whenever I am willing to go to war with something and I come out on the other side having radically shifted, in my opinion, there's always a deeper understanding of the gospel, a more full, whole picture of who Christ is, what his love was, what the cross really was, what mercy is, what death and damnation and judgment and resurrection. Like I've never exchanged a 1970s church tradition that I learned in Sunday school for something lesser. God has never wrestled something precious out of my hands and given me something crappier. Whenever I'm willing to hold my doctrines like this instead of this, whenever I'm willing to do this, sometimes he takes it and it hurts because I thought it was beautiful. He never replaces it with something disappointing.
What is that though, Vicki? What is that people they love? Like I talked to a dude before,
it's called book sales.
And he said he has all his doctrine. He has all his doctrine that he already believes. He has all his theology. And I said, well, like, bro, because like I go in the Bible every morning and I'm in expectation to find something new. If that includes changing a thought that I had about something else, I'm in expectation and I'm like treasure hunting. That's like why I'm hungry to read the Bible. And I was like, bro, like, so why do you read the Bible then? If you've already got all your doctrine set. And he's like, just to reinforce my doctrine. And I'm just like, well, I don't even know what that is, bro. Like you're saying, you're talking to me in Chinese. I don't even understand. Like, is it just the same as like Republicans and Democrats, but it's in the church? It's like, once you have all these things that that's what your party believes, you just can't let go of it? Or like, what is that?
It's idolship.
Ooh,
it's idolship.
Safety too. I mean, you can go to all the negatives, like it's pride and it's fear. Like, sure. I think until, like, to use a metaphor, until we view studying the Word of God like parasailing, we're not ever going to get the full joy and excitement out of it. Like, there's fear in jumping off of the side of a mountain. There's risk. You really could knock into something and hurt yourself. You know, there's risk. You never know when you do that if you're going to bleed a little bit. But the exhilaration of having no ground under your feet and flying through the air, like it's the exhilaration of it. And if studying the Word of God isn't this perfect dance between fear and exhilaration, you're just reading a boring old book. No wonder half the people think the Bible's boring. They don't know how to jump off the cliff with it.
You know, I think one of the big issues with struggling over definitions as well, like I said earlier, it's very convenient to do that when you're not faced with the immediate reality of it. But people who have been through a thing and are facing and tangling with the reality of the spiritual, the supernatural, their frame is adjusted, and suddenly what's important is dealing with it instead of defining it, right? And so what's not lost on me is that if you're caught up in definitions and the minutia and all this language, you're not in a position where you can war against it, right? So you know, in other words, you could put it in simple terms like a bear. It's like, if I don't know the name of this thing, but it's coming for me, and I have to prepare myself and I have to figure out how to deal with it, what its nature is, I would say that's more important. Its nature. What is its nature? What does it intend to do with me? What are its intentions, you know, for me? And how do I navigate this? And if I'm worried as it's approaching me about like what to call this thing, that's a complete waste of resources and effort and energy and concentration and focus and all of these things. And if the goal is to ground people, like let's say ground people in the gospel, right? And part of the biblical worldview is coming to the understanding that you're in a supernatural world, that the spiritual realm is very real, despite, you know, whatever maybe we don't have great language, like you talked about, Vicki, to define this thing. In order to operate within it, in order to live in such a way as as to know that your actions and your words and your will here in the physical realm have real spiritual implications. Getting hunkered down in like, what is this thing called and how do we define it? It's not just a waste of time. It's a fool's errand. It's a dangerous distraction, actually, because it's not going to wait for you to define it. Spiritual warfare is not going to wait for you to define it. The spiritual realm is not going to wait to engage with you until you can accurately define it.
We have a dude here that has engaged with the spiritual realm. I actually I don't know if it's a good point to.
I would love to talk a little bit about that. Yeah. Topher, you've had this near-death experience.
Yes.
And would you mind sharing that with us? I don't think we've heard this before.
Sure. I was a little boy. I was 4 years old, and I had gut dysbiosis. But back then, they didn't call it gut dysbiosis. They thought it was just food allergies.
Okay.
But it got to a point where I had leaky gut so bad that I became allergic to everything I ate. And so when I was in the ICU, my vitals crashed, and I ended up choking out. I ended up,
How old were you?
4.
Oh.
And then when I died, I was on the other side. And because I was so sick as a little kid, when I was in that realm.
What do you mean by that? I'm just playing.
Between here and there.
It was like the one thing, because I tell people, ask me this all the time. I was 4 years old in that realm.
That's interesting.
Like people like, oh, you're an old soul. I was like, I have no idea. I just know when I was on that side, I was the same age. But I was in this like pure, like Vicki said, it's very hard to describe it in words, but like I felt zero pain. I actually, for the first time ever, my existence as a body when I was little was in a lot of pain because of all the sickness I had. And so this is I was in this like euphoria of love and feeling just like fully embraced by like this incredible love and compassion. And I'm there, and then I hear this voice, and it's a voice that's familiar, but I didn't know the person. And the voice is like, it's not your time yet. And then I was like, I was blissing out. I didn't care. And then the voice is like, Christopher, it's not your time. And then I got a little bit petulant. I was like, no, I'm going to stay. And she said, no, Christopher, it's your time. You have to go back. And then as soon as she said that, I could hear my mom crying. And then as soon as I heard my mom crying, I like dropped, like it was like a literal drop out of that state of being.
Did you feel like an entry back into your body?
I like opened my eyes, and my mother and my dad were over because I was in the hospital. And I could hear like the thing beeping in the corner, and the doctor was there, and there was this other being there that as a little kid, I just thought it was somebody that was working there.
Right.
And then, yeah, in hearing my mother cry, the second I felt sadness, I was pulled out of the that euphoria love that I was in, and I dropped back into this realm.
When you were there, do you remember any other sensations? I mean, like the feeling of love, but what about your other senses, sight or smell?
I could see what I could see was really kind of cool. Like, Florida sunsets, especially if you're in the Keys and you see like the coral colors, the purple, the peach colors, like all that was, and I could see beings, but they weren't like defined. They weren't like defined, like, looking at us right here, but I could sense them more than I could see them. And they did look angelic. Like they look like, the prototypical, like very ethereal, and I could feel them as like sentient beings. None of them spoke to me. They were actually arranged like a choir would be arranged.
Huh.
That's
interesting.
And then I could see the colors behind them. And I was just like, it was like my little mind, after I came back and was getting healthy, I always just associated that with heaven because it felt so. I felt at home. First of all, I felt home. I felt like, oh,
right.
And there was no fear. I felt zero fear. And I've heard people say that children have a different, like if children die, like all children go to heaven, that type of thing. They probably go through.
I believe that's dogs. I'm sorry.
They probably go through a different gate or whatever, however that works. I don't know. But that feeling like was just so incredible. Like, and I've never ever had the doubt of God ever, just because of that love was so like, it was so saturating. It was like so all encompassing that there was never like all the different experiences I've had since then where I was close to death or whatever, none of them ever fazed me. I was like,
It's just like, yeah,
if that's what I have waiting for me.
yeah, seems like a relief. I mean, Vicki, thoughts?
Yeah, so Topher, I'm interested in, did that have a direct or immediate impact on your being healed from the leaky gut? Or
Yeah, I came directly back from that. For 1 year. I had to eat nothing but apricots because of my gut.
Interesting.
So they put me on a monofruit diet. All my vitals came back. I couldn't mix. Oddly enough, I went on like a real, like the only thing my body could handle, I couldn't mix enzymes in foods. So I could never eat dairy and eat meat at the same time. I couldn't eat anything with any synthetic colorings. My body was hyper allergic to all of that. And I was like a test tube baby. They would give me 60 shots every 6 months on each shoulder. And I was a pin cushion. So they were, who knows what was in all those shots. I mean, back then that's the way they did so-called allergy shots.
Yeah, I got that when I was a kid. They did it to my back, a whole grid of them.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I recovered. And what was cool, I think my body's passing was actually there for my parents, because my parents were fighting a lot. They weren't jiving.
Right.
And then that kind of like brought them like some joy for a little bit, me coming back.
Kind of frames things, puts it in perspective.
Yeah,
what's
and
important.
They stayed together for like another 5 years and then it was over. But like that whole thing, I think whatever my path was as a little one was like, I was like sort of this vector for my sensitivity to their disease, their problems caused it to be like a wonderful mirror for them. You know, because I've seen that happen too. Like in my consciousness, I've seen different people be like the mirror for the other ones in their life.
Sure.
So yeah, that was, and I've never like, since then, the other people that I know that have had near-death experiences, we all kind of share like a little like intuitive knowing of the other.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because there's like no fear.
What's the nature of that knowing? Like, what might you?
It's
do
just
you
like,
know it before you talk to them, or once they start talking, then you?
Well, it's just like kind of like, you know, when you have your best friend around, like you just kind of like you can finish their sentence.
Yeah,
Right.
Top and Raven do that to me a lot.
It's not that you have like like I don't have any psychic thing with them. It's
Sure.
just more like I intuitively know where they're going or how they see something.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I've had two really close friends for over 25 years that both of them had their near-death experiences in high school.
Mhm.
And like, as soon as we met, we were all like, oh, like, yes.
And you've been there. Like
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
And all of us have the same thing. It's just like, God is real and alive. And there's like
Yeah.
nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, that's huge. Because I mean, you know, I don't know if we were talking about this in the previous show too, but this concept of do not fear, don't be discouraged, for, you know, the Lord is with you always.
Right.
That fear, it's interesting that when you heard and you experienced sadness is when you left that place.
Yeah.
I just wonder about like sadness is kind of fear adjacent, right? There are certain emotions that are, if fear is a tree, then its branches might be anxiety, depression, anger, sadness.
But I was
even
4 years old. Like I was not an advanced 4-year-old.
No. I'm not saying
I was
that.
just like-
I'm just saying sadness is kind of fear adjacent, right? Because sadness in some ways is the anticipation of the impact of a thing. Like you're thinking about a thing that has happened, the sadness of your mother, the tears of your mother, and like what this means. I just wonder if there's room for that sort of a thing, like let's say in heaven, right? Which even that gets a little bit wonky because there's a second heaven and third heaven and, you know, all these different spiritual realms. But it doesn't seem like fear has a place in those realms. It doesn't feel like anger or hatred or maybe even sadness has a place in those realms. And so it's just fascinating to me that you should have felt that sadness, and that was the last thing before you came out of there.
Mhm.
And
Well, I mean, my guardian angel was very emphatic that it wasn't my time.
Hmm.
So I don't know how that all works. I don't know how. She was just like, it's not your time. Like,
are you familiar with? I mean, I have to imagine you're familiar with stories like these, Vicki.
Yeah, actually, this is another topic where a lot of Christians get the cognitive dissonance because it's not talked about in the church, and it's not believed in the church and whatnot. If anyone's interested on a comprehensive study with a lot of interviews and case studies involved, Sean Tabbitt actually wrote a book on near-death experiences. That I can't remember the exact title of the book. NDE obviously is in the title. It was put out by Destiny Image Publishing, but yeah, Sean Tabbitt has written an entire book about it. And so, yeah, I'm absolutely familiar with it. And, it's interesting, the juxtaposition of you've got near-death experiences where people experience heaven or some sort of paradise or some sort of love. And it's interesting what you said too, Topher, because I'm thinking of the verse, there is no fear in love. So if you're in the presence of Christ, it would be impossible for you to feel fear. It would be so over, and it would knock that out. It wouldn't be possible. But then it gets confusing because there are people that have ayahuasca trips and stuff where they're talking to ascended masters, and they will come back saying, "I felt nothing but love and light." And how do you make sense of that? Like that to me is.
I can speak on that because for 10 years, I was in the ayahuasca circles.
Okay, please do. What is the difference there?
Yeah. Like when I lived in Costa Rica, I was like in medicine circles. I lived in an area where there were tons of ayahuasca retreats, and my business had me intertwined with all that. And I have to say, it was nothing like the shamanic journeys, the medicine journeys, and things like that. None of them ever even came close to the presence of God that I felt as a 4-year-old, and then also when I was saved, when that experience.
Did you feel like you got in another realm from the ayahuasca though?
But it's much more of it's much more of an astral realm. It's a lower realm.
So Topher,
the astral realms are lower.
So
than the spirit realm.
Topher, these people that talk about the beings of love and light, and we know Satan can parade as an angel of light. Though, interestingly, the stories that I've read about people who've done ayahuasca, they do talk about how they have to kind of go through a death before they get the good stuff.
The little death,
So what is that then? Are they just like tripping our dopamine and giving us like a response, and because we don't have anything to compare it to, it's like smoke and mirrors? Or how
like a cheap imitation, maybe? Like
it is a cheap imitation, because like the DMT, there's books written on it. One's called like the
spirit molecule,
or the God molecule or whatever. It isn't the same experience like at all for me. And when I say I did it a few times, I did it like 50 times. It wasn't like
technically a few is 3 or more. So
so in that, what was interesting for me was a really good friend of mine, a friend that had the near-death experience himself. He was somebody that was also in that realm, and he and I both knew we both had done so much work on ourselves before that ever came into our consciousness, that we constantly saw the folly of people that were going in and doing, quote unquote medicine work, because they were like, you brought it up earlier. It's a terrible thing to like get knowledge or get anything without earning it. And you never know how earnest a person is in their spiritual practice for real. Like maybe the closest people in your life, but you have so many people that talk a good game.
It's fashionable, right?
Yeah.
It became fashionable to go there and do ayahuasca.
Yeah,
and
but
things like that.
Like we were exposed to it in like 2007, like before it became like a real fashionable thing. It was like one of these things where you cannot skip the work.
Right.
God, I don't think God gives you like little cheat codes and it's like, here, just because you have the extra money to go to a Peruvian shaman or whatever, you're now in like Flynn. There aren't any cheat codes.
Yeah, God puts us through a sort of refining fire. The struggles in our life impart a certain wisdom on us. And I think each person gets this kind of unique bag of tricks. I don't want to call them tricks, but you know what I'm saying? Like your walk is very unique. And yeah, what is everybody, if you just have the money to go to Costa Rica, everybody gets the same bag of unlocked wisdom.
And even in that, what was great about my situation was I got to see so many different shamans. I got to see ones that were the real deal. I got to see the shysters. I got to see the people who were making their medicine. I got to see the people that weren't making the medicine. I was seeing the people that were cutting the quote unquote medicine.
Oh no!
I got to see the Israeli influence in that whole thing. I saw.
What? Why is that so funny to you, Matt? Why'd you laugh at that?
We didn't ask for that.
Don't laugh. God bless Israel. What are you doing, dude? Stop. Please.
Stop it.
And so in watching all of it and being in the back, because I was the guy that was working on the people that were working on people.
Wait, why is there Israel? I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. I thought this was just a Matt thing.
No,
What, now you're intrigued?
What the?
It's fascinating. I
No,
guess.
no.
Unpack that a little bit.
Because
for us.
Matt's going to want to say, oh, these guys see Israel under every rock. That's not necessarily true. I did not.
Oh, I didn't know that. You have a thing with them?
Yeah,
He loves it. And there's nothing
No,
else.
I'm just saying, if you took any ethnicity, you could pick them apart and say, "Oh,
Okay,
the
no, we're
Italian
not doing
mafia
this.
Can you
is
tell us
this."
about
We're
the
not doing
Italian
this.
influence?
Tell us
in
about the
ayahuasca?
Italian influence in ayahuasca, please. Mother ayahuasca is Italian, right?
No, where
Oh,
the
goodness.
area that I was in had a lot of Israeli investment.
Okay.
Oh,
And
right.
the Israeli investment in that area, a bunch of those guys got into distributing and
Was there a lot of rabbis doing?
Oh, no. Are you talking about the government? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Or
no,
like-
I'm talking about Israelis.
Oh shit.
Jewish people
Oh.
know where to make money. They're just conducting business, making some jack down there on the ayahuasca trade.
That's all.
I get it.
Okay.
That's all.
I mean,
No,
they
I'm
were
not saying that's good. That's bad too.
I knew
Whatever.
some very beautiful families from Israel that had like cacao farms and like coffee farms,
Yeah.
all different types of businesses. But there was a very strong contingent because no matter what, the Israelis are excellent at marketing and they're a tribe.
business in general.
And so if one of them starts to serve the ayahuasca, their whole country is going to find out about it like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And then there's like a
They wanna
place where
get
they
in on
can
that.
all speak
Mhm.
Yiddish to each other in Hebrew. And
That's got to be scary. Imagine being on ayahuasca and you accidentally stumble into the
Well,
Yiddish tent.
were they partaking in the ritual or just like
oh yeah. And what was weird
That's
for me
fascinating.
what
from a
was-
religious aspect or
secular? No. Like I wouldn't say I would have directed anybody of my ilk in their direction.
Sure.
I wouldn't have done
Because
that.
they would spit on them.
for more than one reason. But you know, I knew too many things with the behind the scenes side of things.
Mhm.
It's just like anybody, like when you see retreats run for like whether it's vegetarianism or veganism
Yeah.
or any of the isms, you get to see, like I got to see the back of the house operations because I was the one building the buildings for these people.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, you guys are just running. This is just a bit like we were
That's
talking about
such
this
a
with
great
podcasts.
point, dude.
We were just talking about this with podcasters. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, you can't make an idol out of anybody.
Correct.
And so I was looking at this as like, oh, I'm going to get my spiritual guidance from like, you know,
Bro, I had the same thing being a flooring guy doing churches. You know how many churches we put flooring in
I
over
bet.
the years? Never got the gospel preached to me ever.
No.
Ever on
Oh,
the job
like-
site by the pastor who was there or anybody in the church that was there.
That's kind of
Like,
sad.
so it's kind of like the same thing. It was like
Yeah.
a spiritual thing. You're there to do the work. They don't really like, they're not really preaching to you or you
No.
know what I
Just
mean?
about
But
the
you see
business.
all the behind the scenes.
And then I got to see like the real behind the scenes because I lived there for 15 years and I had to do business and I got to see whether a person had integrity or not.
yeah.
I got to see whether they had integrity with other people within the community. I got to see if they were living their message. I got to see how they would market relative to other things. And it was just like, oh man, this is a shyst.
Yeah.
Mm.
That was my conclusion too.
You know what?
So-
Oh, go ahead, Top.
again, your conclusion of the ayahuasca community is that I guess it is real, but it's just like a grift.
Yo, he
No,
said
no,
a
no,
lower
the-
realm too. He said a lower realm, not just in the spirit realm. A
Yeah,
lower realm than
that was the
this.
thing. That was the thing I was trying to really communicate with people. And Vicki, you'll know about this, is like what I started to see is number one, that whole realm that you go to when you're under DMT can be electronically manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be broadcasts. Like if you have 30 people that are all under the influence of the same thing, they become an antenna array.
Right.
That antenna array gives off a frequency that they would vector into. So just like they do with the Stephen Greer stuff where they'll
binaural beats, CE5.
The CE5 where they'll send like lights in the sky and stuff like that.
Well, that's kind of what they're doing with the drums, right? It's a frequency based, rhythmic based kind of thing to get you into a trance state. It just shows you like, the fundamental ways. Even the natives knew that one of the fundamental ways to manipulate this experience is through, you call them beats. They're beats, right? I mean, so when you find out that binaural beats is,
I want to be clear. There are people that are being very authentic with it and aren't doing that. But for the most part, what would occur is like my second and last ceremony I ever did was literally I was having UNESCO talking points coming to me after it's the United Nations.
What?
Listen, like one of my clients was General Albert Stubblebine, and he was the guy who invented remote viewing, and he was living in Panama. No, I'm not kidding. Like
what the hell is happening right now?
I was literally his builder, and I was his attaché finding him property, and he was teaching me about Agenda 21 and UNESCO and all this stuff. And then he like was giving me the white papers like in 2010 and 2011. And so I was in this ceremony, and literally I was having people come up to me after the second cup, like the alien, the Star Brotherhood is here saying we have to save the planet.
You're a star seed.
And everything that they were saying was stuff that I was reading in Agenda 2030 as an addendum to Agenda 21. And so I went to the shaman, and I was like, I was so excited. I was like, dude, there's the frequency range that we're in, they're broadcasting into right now.
Whoa.
And then I could actually sense where the broadcast was coming from, because you can see your visual acuity quadruples and your auditory acuity quadruples, your visual acuity triples. So you can see a lot more things, you can hear a lot more things. And it was so nuts. I was like, dude, they're broadcasting to us. Everybody's saying the same thing.
That's wild.
But he was under the same delusion. And then the lights came in the sky, and I knew it was all fake.
That kind of sheds a new light on this idea of the alien interaction that we've been looking at, the phenomenon.
I mean,
I'm totally under I'm under the. His name's Spencer from Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, what's happening?
Somebody stopped by with I think he said
Spencer from Florida.
Okay, all right, cool. Go on.
Amazing, it's weird.
Spencer from Florida has a great Instagram site. So I think a lot of the things that, like we were talking about, in the last episode, so many of the things that we see up in the sky are like clandestine operations.
Yeah.
But so many of the things are also broadcast into us. They've had skull to skull transmission since the 60s.
Yeah.
They've had all these ways of transmitting this stuff. And this is why, like, I really love what you guys are talking about with the fakery of the alien, whatever you call it, the alien
disclosure narrative, whatever. Yeah.
Because the tech that the humans have had is actually, it's just mimicking, like they're the ones that are feeding all of the storylines and all these science fiction movies.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they're hiding the tech that actually does that stuff.
They're the muses, right?
Exactly.
They're inspiring man to engage in these works. Okay.
Which is why it's like, man, when we come to these like solid conclusions on what this phenomenon is, and we can have all the terms defined.
Define phenomena.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, and say like as a matter of fact, like this is what's happening, and everybody fall in line and trust science. It's just like,
here. I want to kick this to Vicki. I want to get your thoughts on what Topher just described, and then I have for you. But let's first just get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm loving this because you're now getting your chocolate and my peanut butter, Topher, because I've been studying the dream hacking because so this is again where our definitions count. Let's all get on the same page. As long as we continue using one broad term to describe multiple dream states, I'm asleep, I'm dreaming. Right. As if there's no gray areas in there. Okay, so if you are in a sleep paralysis / nightmare type of a situation where you're no longer dreaming, you're lucid, you're in some different dream state now because your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is supposed to be shut down when you're asleep, is active. All of a sudden, you have an inner monologue, you're interacting with yourself, you have all full memories of your life, you have your personality, your communication style. There's cohesion to the storyline playing out before you. It's not nonsensical like a normal defrag dream. You have full access to your moral code, your religion, your fight or flight. You have all your emotions. So you're no longer dreaming. And you can call it astral projection or an out of body, or you can call it whatever you want. What I call it is REM abduction, because you have now been pulled to this other place. You're going to wake up. If you have any memory of it all, it was just a dream. Oh, I had the worst dream last night. You're not going to think about it. But what's starting to happen now, I love what you're saying about all of the broadcasting. I loved that word, because now you've got people that are not just talking individually. Okay, let's go into the quantum mechanics of this. Entanglement. Okay, now it's not just, I'm Vicki and I've had sleep paralysis my whole life because of my trauma and I've had all these bad dreams, and occasionally a demon will ride in on the coattails of that bad dream and scare me, and like, that's all it is. Don't worry about it. Now we are starting to see people talk about collective dream spaces.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're talking about liminal spaces. We're talking about the mall world. It's the same mall. It's the same stores. You're meeting the same people. It's the same patterns. It's this. People are drawing maps, and the maps are lining up. And so, and the broadcasting that goes on. Now, I've only had this happen 2 or 3 times so far, but I always go back to, I remember in 2018. If you told people that your smart TV could hear you, you were a lunatic. Like, this is 2018, right? But you'd be sitting around talking about, oh, my vacuum cleaner broke. And then all of a sudden, all these vacuum cleaner ads and commercials are coming up. And, if it happens once or twice, synchronicity, just a coincidence, whatever. But now we're to the point, 5, 6, 7 years later, where now it's like, well, of course the smart TV is listening to you. Of course it is, no one thinks you're crazy. Why wouldn't it be? Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's the same thing with the dream hacking. So what's happened to me now, like 3 times, is I will have a dream, and a particular person, usually a celebrity that I care nothing about, which would be all of them, will show up in my dream. Okay. Somebody will appear in my dream. Never seen any of their movies, don't know anything about them, don't care. It's not like I had posters of them up on my wall when I was a kid or anything. And that next day when I wake up, my Instagram feed will be chock full of stuff for that person.
That's weird.
And I don't know if it's a which came first, the chicken or the egg. Now, this is what I do whenever those things happen, whether it's on my Instagram feed or not. Anytime I have a dream about a celebrity, especially, but something like that, I will intentionally, no matter how curious I am or how intrigued I am or how lured into the narrative I am, if it's a really good dream or whatever, I will, by absolute resolve and self-discipline, not search that out on the internet. I am not going to go and feed the algorithm. I'm not going to train these people that every time you plant something in my head, I'm going to become obsessed with it, or I'm going to follow your lead. No, I get to pick what I want to think about. And if I didn't care about this person before, there's no need for me to care about them now. And so I do feel that the sleep paralysis has gone to a whole new level with me. I don't have the old stuff anymore. I wake up, like that. That's all like for the 4 and 5-year-olds, right? Now what I'm having is having to wake up and fight for my autonomy and my humanness. I have to wake up, and I'm still going to choose today who I'm going to serve, what I'm going to look into, if I don't have an interest in something and you have introduced it to me in a world of intrigue or flattery, like we were talking about earlier. You've got this young like handsome celebrity in this dream that is so intrigued with you, and then you wake up and you want to perpetuate that fantasy. No, I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to have someone else tell me what I'm going to think about or dream about or long for or compare my life to, or what I'm going to buy. And I mean, we're this far away, if it's probably happened already, where they're going to start, you know, we've heard about it. They're going to start putting the commercials in our dreams, right?
Well,
the advertising.
Wait, let me, I had a feeling this is where you were going. So advertisers are exploring dream incubation, using audio video cues before sleep to implant brand imagery into dreams as a new frontier for marketing. Companies like
to make.
You've been doing this to me.
I've been doing this to myself. Well, when I was younger and in not in music, so I was in college. So I have a minor in music, but I would play a C note and then a couple of other ones, but mainly C. I wanted to find middle C. So I would play that tone while I slept in order to like internalize this
You're
kind
a
of thing.
Psychopath.
It worked.
All right.
I have relative pitch because of it. I don't have perfect. Perfect pitch means you can hear a sound.
Gates program yourself.
You did.
It's like I would just drink. I would drink a cup of pink drink before bed, and I would play a C note over and over again, and
make a soul circle.
No, I wear a heavy blanket to simulate paralysis. Yeah,
this actually it did work.
ME Ultra.
ME Ultra.
We cut out the middle there.
God, that's such a banger.
Yeah, the government aliens, they came to my house and they're like, he's doing it to himself.
He's already doing it to himself.
Yeah.
ME Ultra is the great. Holy crap.
It did help me internalize that note. So if you know where C is at, then you can like figure out on the rest of the scale, if you're really paying attention, where the rest of the notes are.
So,
have you guys heard of Sabrina Wallace or Chris Crutchfield, who's been extending her work?
No,
I've heard the names. I'm not familiar with the concept.
I think I brought her up in the last pod, but like her whole thing, and Vicki, you're gonna love this. She's been showing how since 2016, the frequency band that they're using in telecommunications is only like, I forget what degree off of our own rhythms within our body.
Okay.
Within our own neurology. And so when you look, her name's Sabrina Wallace. She runs
very familiar.
She runs Psi Energy on Rumble, and her and Chris Crutchfield have done these series of talks where they've really broken it down about this whole thing about essentially front loading your consciousness with a thought, whether it's in a dream or actually transmitting it into your brain. And then you go and look at your Instagram and you see that thing. And so most people are like, Instagram's reading my mind, but it's not that at all. What they've done is they've preloaded your body with that frequency. Then your phone or whatever device picks up that frequency.
That's wow.
And they're using that as like in any control. That's the control.
Well, of course, anything
and you're breaking that, by the way, you saying, no, I'm not going to go to that control. I'm not going to look up, that famous person. To them, they're going to be they're trying to figure out, oh, we have to change the frequency like this, or we have to pick up the amplitude or whatever. But this is something that's going on. That's why I think the whole thing with the alien agenda is people don't know that this technology is here. The holographic technology is here, but it's not holograms like they're going to be projecting it out in the sky. The hologram is actually going to, it's much more of an internal experience that people are going to be having that they're going to be projecting onto the world.
Whoa.
So they're going to be like, no, I swear.
Like a hijacking of the visual cortex.
Would you say it's like a mass hallucination?
Well, it's not mass hallucination. So this is the thing, like we brought this up earlier. All four of us, and Vicki, you brought up this example. You could have 3 friends. You all grew up at the same time. You were all conditioned the same way. You guys are not going to see things the same way. Mm-hmm. None of us see the way anybody else sees. We think we do.
Right.
And so what you're going to do is you're going to have some things that are going to be visually shown through a screen. We're going to see it through a screen. And then you're going to have people that are going to believe. The most effective dupes are the ones that believe what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
Because we all pick up on the truth vibe.
Oh yeah, you don't want somebody out there who's running a narrative who is in the know. You want somebody who's spreading, let's say, disinformation.
Yeah, like Timothy
who believes it. Well, don't say that's not nice.
I'm sorry, that wasn't nice. That was
don't
rude.
say that. He's not.
I don't actually get an authenticity vibe from him at all.
Well, that's well.
I really don't. No, I'm talking about somebody that literally is going to come to you as a zealot and be like, I saw the triangles above me. I swear to God.
Somebody who genuinely believes.
And they're just like totally in it. And your biofield is going to pick up their biofield. And you're going to be like, this person's telling me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But their truth isn't real.
Yeah. But they would pass a lie detector.
It says it in, I think it's 253, man. It says that these evil people are going to go on deceiving and being deceived.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like the dude deceived himself in teaching. This is within the church is the context. Like that guy's the most dangerous because he's sincere.
That brings about that notion of strong delusion again. Somebody who's unwilling to see the truth initially. It's like God gives you what you want.
Right.
You don't want to see it here. I'll take away that discernment. I'll take away the truth, and you can spiral further into your own lie to the extent where you really believe it. By the way, though, so companies like Coors and Burger King have tested this with studies showing a 27% increase in purchase intent for products dreamt about. So, I mean, look, if it's 27%, I mean, what would you do for a 27%?
David woke up. He's like, I gotta buy stupid glasses.
I think
today.
we gotta. No, I just wake up half the time. My purchases are already behind. I think it's just convenient. If my Instagram stopped doing targeted ads to me, I'd be a little bit bummed out. I'm like, show me products I want to buy. Get back in here because I don't know. I don't want this crap. I want, what you program me to want. Something that I wanted to ask you, Vicki, on the topic of this, alien deception. Are there? Take this wherever you want. Are there any good aliens?
Ooh, good question.
Okay, again, we gotta define alien, and I think again, we have all these words that have a spectrum, and we use the one word to mean all of it, so everything when we're asleep is a dream. And what's another one? I had one and it slipped my mind, but anyway, so when you talk about aliens,
Can I refine the question?
I am playing coy to an extent when I say this.
I'll refine it without burying like the
lead
in like
okay, yeah.
Within this spiritual realm that exists on the other side, things that are not explicitly at the command of God. So those angels that are at the command of God the Father, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, these entities, excluding those, when I say alien, I think that's what I'm talking about. So we're talking about extraterrestrial, we're talking about interdimensional, we're talking about other beings, cryptids, whatever you name it, even beings of light, things like that, but not the beings that are not specifically under the command of God. I think is that what you're talking about?
More or less. I mean, I think I'm looking more confined to something that disclosure might want to reveal to us. So let's say hypothetically disclosure comes along.
Okay, you're talking about the species of
like alien. Let's say
because angels are alien to us.
Yep,
they are alien to us, right? Yeah. And so of course the terminology.
Yes,
I mean, look, let's not do this. Let's have a well-informed conversation. Within what we suspect on the show, I think that aliens are much more of a Hollywood propaganda thing. We've got this propaganda wing that delivers to us our opinions and thoughts on the alien phenomenon. And I think there's been a rebranding. It's taken place over generations, and they'd hope to show us, an array of different species, each with their own motives. Hopefully you would buy that they're from space and, they're highly advanced technologically speaking. And, maybe there's some good ones, maybe there's some bad ones. Do you buy into that? I mean, let's even remove the alien thing. Let's go with the presupposition that these are a rebranding of ancient entities. When they try to say, well, some of them are bad, it's easy to say the Greys are bad, right? But then some of them might be good. Some of them might even be in opposition to the Greys. Some of them might be friendly. What do you make of that landscape?
Yeah. So I've got a lot to say about this. Let me see if I can be concise. So I'm gonna coin some Heiser phrases here. So Heiser talks about Elohim, right? And the I am in the Hebrew means it means plural. That's kind of like the English equivalent to the S or the ES. So if you see an I am ending, it means plural. And the I am ending is also usually ascribed to royalty, royal bloodlines. It's not like if you're a deplorable, you don't get the I am ending, right? These are ancient bloodlines. So Elohim is what translates into English as God. So when we see Elohim, we think it means God the Father, and anything else is a little g God, and it's a demon, and it's an alien, and it's a bad guy. But that is not the Hebraic understanding of Elohim. Elohim has more to do with location than it has to do with personhood or identity. So when I say that I am an American, all that means is I'm not German, I'm not Chinese, I'm not Canadian. And so, but within America, every American doesn't look like me. We've got male, we have female, we have different ages, we have different ethnicities from our forefathers, etc. So when the Bible or a Hebraic writer says Elohim, it's talking about every single being that's not terrestrial in nature. Earth is not your first estate. Okay. So this can be God the Father, and it can be Jesus, and it can be angels, but it can also be all the dead people in Sheol before the cross. It can be all the people who have died because they're no longer terrestrial. They no longer have a body. They're no longer here with their lungs breathing air. And so we have to come to a more ancient, accurate understanding of Elohim, because as long as Christians have their horse blinders on and think Elohim means God the Father, and if we ascribe that word to anything else, it's blasphemous. That's not the way a author of scripture would have understood that word. Now, when God says that he's the God of gods, the Lord of lords, the King of kings, he's basically acknowledging of all of the Elohims out there, there is none like me. I am preeminent. I'm the best. I created all of the others. So in terms of aliens or demons or all of the riffraff in Ephesians 6:12, you know, the fallen angels, the archons, the principalities, the spiritual forces of wickedness, all these things. What I'm going to say about are they good or bad, I'm going to differentiate it this way. We already know from the serpent in the garden that something bad or something, let's say, that's fallen, something that has rebelled against its maker and is now acting out its own will. The serpent said a lot of things that were true. It said one lie. So if you're going to define good or evil in terms of something evil only speaks lies, no, are there fallen entities that will speak truth? Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So what it comes down to isn't whether or not everything they're saying is true or false. It is their intent. If they are telling you something true, why? Mm-hmm. Because they're building to the deception. And so they have to get you in. And so if right off the bat, there is no God and Jesus Christ was just a man and he died and he never rose from the dead because they went and they hid his body, you're going to be like, screw you. Like, I don't believe in it. You're not on the hook even. Yeah. So if the intent of the truth is like some of these gatekeepers that we have online, where I'm going to present myself as a Christian and a theologian, and I'm going to speak gospel doctrine, theology. 5 years, I'm going to get a huge audience. Everyone's going to trust me. They're now going to flip into the blinder mode because they think I'm awesome and they've read all my books. And now I'm going to start weaving little lies, and they're not going to catch them because they're not questioning me. I built their trust. So yes, fallen things can tell the truth, but what's the intent? If they're doing it to build your trust so they can, lure you into the back of the white panel van with their candy, then obviously evil people can speak truth. But then you had a really good point too, Raven, with we have this idea, and I think that we have so constructed our concept of war and spiritual warfare and battles and fighting and good and evil. We've taken our understanding of good and evil more from Star Wars than we have the Bible. Yep. And we do have this idea that there's one guy with a blue or green sword and there's one guy with the red sword. And these two people, and they're having their little fight. And so we have to understand, I mean, even politically, even we see this in the terrestrial realm, there are bloodline families that are fighting to the death for power. We've got the Catholic Church that wants all this power. We've got the Illuminati that wants all this power. We've got the government that wants all this power, and they're fighting, constantly fighting. There are many groups and entities and bloodlines that want the scepter of planet Earth. And so one of them ultimately is going to prevail momentarily in the end times. And so there's going to be infighting. And this idea that there's one bad guy, one good guy, it is where a lot of us get messed up, because then we're in this duality where if there's a good guy, I'll pick the good guy. And a lot of times the good guy is the lesser of two evils. The good guy that isn't even the good guy. And where this gets really interesting is if you do a deep dive into the noun, the common Hebrew noun, Satan or Hasatan, the adversary. It's just a common noun. Satan's not his name. Lucifer's not his name. All of a sudden we got a Latin word in the Bible for some reason. Okay. And so take away Satan or Lucifer. Even in the book of Enoch, we had 200 watchers coming down. Okay, so there was 200 enemies, maybe 201 if you don't believe that Samyaza and Azazel are the same dude, which I don't think they were. But anyway, now it's like, okay, who is Satan? Because if Azazel is in the abyss right now and he's all locked up, who's this guy who presented himself in heaven in Job and said, where have you been? I've been roaming the earth. Okay, well then you're not Azazel, you're not Apollyon, because he's not roaming the earth. So now there's at least two bad guys. And I think about it and it's like, what is going to show the absolute power, majesty, might, sovereignty, and superiority of Jesus Christ? A guy who fights one bad guy and wins? He's got a 50-50 chance there, right? Or what if there are 100 Hasatans? What if there's 1,000? What if there's 1,000,000? Now we're talking Indiana Jones, where he, pulls out his sword and it's a whole, it's a crowd of guys with swords. It's not just the one guy. Anyone with a Derringer that's got one lead bullet's going to shoot one guy at least once, right? I mean, so I think this idea that there's only one group at the top of the pyramid, or there's one bad guy or one royal bloodline or even one Satan, we would have so much more excitement and cultural pride in who we are as children of God if we understood how badass Jesus is. He's not some dude in sandals that conquered one guy. He has conquered, zillions of these things that are coming at him from every angle. This is the guy in the Bruce Lee movies that is kung fuing 100 people coming at him. And I just think it's sad that we can go to a movie and see some Superman or Spider-Man or Iron Man or something like that, and we can be so in awe of this fictionalized rebranding. Let's put an old Nephilim in tights, and I'm going to get the tattoos and the mugs and the pajamas and the bed sheets, and I'm going to go to the Comic Cons and I'm going to spend my life oohing and awing over this guy in tights, and then never realize that Jesus is the one that's conquering every single one of them, and yet he bores us.
It is amazing how they've managed to take something so epic and make it so boring. And I think what people are preparing to fall for is something that is akin to the people of antiquity, where you have, what's the marker of a good god? When you look at like the Greek mythos or any of the mythoses, and surely Zeus and the rest of the pantheons were revered and loved, right? I mean, obviously there are a lot of stories where you look at it and you go, these people are horrifying, or these entities are horrifying, but they were revered and they were loved and they were worshipped, and they were worshipped and loved because of the things that they could give their worshipers, their followers, right? They bought blessings on them. They have the ability to, let's say, impart wisdom and mystic teachings, technologies, even if you want to go down that route. But all throughout antiquity, we have these examples of these entities teaching agriculture, teaching metallurgy, which are responsible for huge leaps in advancement in early people. And certainly, by all measures, they made the lives of the inhabitants of these cities and these cultures exponentially better. Metallurgy, exponentially better. Agriculture, exponentially better. To take a primitive people who are constantly teetering on the cusp of like starvation, really, because it's like if there's not a good hunt that year, if the herd doesn't move through, or if you're not successful in your hunt and your gather, well, then that could mean life or death if the weather rolls in a bad way. But if you can prepare for the future, learning agriculture, planting crops, domesticating animals, that ensures longevity. That changes the game. By that measure, then these things are good, right? I mean, isn't that so? So where I'm at right now is anybody who wants to entertain this idea of like good aliens, and I know we've already established like that's a kind of a misnomer. It's a rebranding, but I don't, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I don't know exactly what their measure of a benign entity, of a good entity. Now my measure would be, neutral was even a weird thing. We had a discussion with Tim about that, and he said that he does believe that there are neutral entities. I don't think that there are, because Jesus explicitly says, if you're not with me, you're against me. And so then how then could you be neutral? I don't think there is such thing, especially when you're dealing with spiritual entities. But then again, the foundation of spiritual entity is in flux. So we can't even come to an agreement on that. But my measure would be in the grace of God, in the service of God. If this entity is in that standing, then we are at least in alignment. I'm not for you, I'm for the Lord, but we're both for the Lord. So cool. You know what I mean? But that to me is the only useful measure, because all other feelings of love don't seem to matter. You go back to the Jake Barber thing where he recovers the UAP, egg-shaped UAP from the mountain range in a helicopter, and he's filled with this feeling of love, and there's this woman talking to him or whatever, and he's tied into UAP disclosure. So I'm super to use Matt's vocabulary, Sketchosaurus Rex about that. The measure that we would use is it falls short. Are you giving me gifts? That's not a good measure. Do you make me feel love? Well, apparently there could be a counterfeit version of that, so that's not a good measure. Are you for the Lord is the measure, I think. And I don't think there's another measure that you could possibly have that is more apt than that. But what do you think, Vic?
Yeah, this is a great discussion. So we have our definitions as human beings as to what's good, what's helpful, what's productive. Interestingly, in the book of Enoch, when we find out that Azazel is giving all of this information to mankind, again, this has to do with intent. When he was judged and put into chains, he was judged for sharing the mysteries of heaven. And the angel specifically says, and you didn't even share the good ones. You shared the worthless ones. So here's the deal. We do know that agriculture and farming and metals and all this stuff was all, it was all good things. And we also know that God, probably more likely pre-incarnate Messiah, when he was with the people, he was teaching them things. I mean, there's all sorts of mysteries hidden in that Torah and in the oral tradition of Abraham, Isaac, and his kids. You read the book of Jasher, and you find out they knew how to read the star map, the Mazzaroth. When they went to build the temple, all of a sudden, men were supernaturally endowed with the ability to know blueprint design, carpentry, architecture. And all of a sudden we had a guy who had a gifting to make musical instruments and to make music. So, God, pre-incarnate Messiah, they also have the ability to teach mankind things to make life more convenient and easy and make sure we don't starve and things like that. So the reason why the things that were shared by the Watchers were worthless is because the intent wasn't for our convenience and our health, wealth, and happiness. The same way today the elites give us all of these things, but it's not for our health, wealth, and happiness. It's to get us further enslaved. And so, hey, I'm going to teach all about metals so you can make weapons and kill each other, so there can be bloodshed and war. Hey, I'm going to tell you how to mix herbs and things, so that you can, communicate with the spirit realm. Yeah. I'm going to show women how to make cosmetics so they can seduce men and destroy marriages. And so it's not that the information or the mystery itself was bad, but the reason why they were the worthless mysteries is, again, knowledge of good and evil. Here's the other side of the coin. This is what God intended with all of these things, because Jesus's kingdom is all about abundance. Your cup runneth over. I've owned the cattle on 1,000 hills. The kingdom of Jesus Christ is about abundance, and the kingdom of Babylon is all about lack. There's not enough. And so if you want it, you're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to work and enslave yourself to earn money and to get the health insurance and to buy it. And, we're all out. And so I think with this, good or bad, let's contrast that now with the kingdom of God. Jesus comes to earth, and he did not promise or achieve wealth, health, happiness, and prosperity, which is why so many people, even within his own little group, were questioning him. John the Baptist, is this really the guy? And then we got Judas, like, I'm out, tap out, man. Like, this guy was supposed to make us rich and famous. He was going to overthrow Rome. We were going to rule. And we even see this with, was it James and John, the two disciples? Like, Jesus just announces to his disciples, they're going to put me to death. I'm going to die. And James and John, their first thought is like, well, as long as you're going to be in heaven, can we sit on your right and your left? Like, it wasn't just Judas. These guys were obsessed with the power and the positions in government that they thought that they were going to inherit from this special friendship. That's where they thought this was all leading. And that's why when Jesus died, they were all so disillusioned. He wasn't the guy. He proved over and over again that he was the guy. But the reason they couldn't see him as the guy is because they didn't overthrow Rome, and they weren't sitting in seats of power. They didn't get elected into the Senate. They didn't have the wealth and the bags of gold. And so what happened then after they figured it out? After the resurrection, they remembered all these things, and he appeared to them, and they realized, he really is, and he's going to go and prepare a place for me. He really is the Messiah. And so at that point, were they bestowed with wealth, position? Did they get promoted? Did they have wealth? Did they have health? Did they have long lives? They didn't get any of that stuff. They were martyred. They were disrespected. They were chased down. They were stoned. They were kangaroo courts. They weren't rich. They were going from town to town, not even bringing a money bag with them, couch surfing with whoever would take them. And so this idea of good and bad, the government has groomed us to believe that something is good and loving and trustworthy if it gives you health, wealth, long life, prosperity. That's not the gifts of the kingdom of heaven. And, we know from Psalm 27, I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. But we also know that it's not going to be until we come into his kingdom that we are going to achieve the health, wealth, and long life and eternal life and prosperity. And we are now living in a world that is being dominated and run by the adversary, and he's going to promote his own people. He's not going to put people in positions of authority that are working against his kingdom. And so I think even when we talk about good and bad, when we talk about love, when we talk about all of these good things, that we have to be very careful. The same way we buck the system when we're dream hacked and we're told to look up the celebrity or look up the Burger King. We also have to tell the government and the people out there who own all the pharmacies and the health insurance companies and the jobs with the paychecks and the bonus checks. We have to constantly be saying, like Jesus, no, why do you call me good? And there's none good but the Father. And it is as true today as it was back then. And so as long as we keep defining health, wealth, and prosperity and goodness and love and safety the way the government tells us we are supposed to define it, first, the more pacified we're going to be with their paltry little temporal gifts that aren't going to do a thing for us, except, give us a meal every day. And and a game system, right? They're willing to give us that stuff to pacify us, but the real definitions of good, the real definition of love. This is why it's important. Like earlier, we were talking about having to define terms, and why is it important if we dig deep down and try to figure these things out? Judas wound up selling Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver because Jesus didn't meet his expectations. He had a terrestrial human definition of who Jesus was and what Jesus came for and what Jesus was going to accomplish. And when Jesus failed to meet Judas's shallow expectation, it led to his destruction. And so we have to understand, not the English translation or the church traditions or what the 501c3 pastor says or what the seminaries tell us. We aren't deep diving into scripture and understanding the culture, context, history, language, and geography, the Hebraic lenses. We are intentionally taught from kindergarten through 12th grade and all the way through college, a Masonic way of learning, the 7 sciences. This is all Masonic, the foundation of our entire public liberal arts education. Liber comes from the Latin word liber, free. You know what that meant? If you're not an elite adept, you're going to get a dumbed down, stripped version of the education. You're getting the free education. You're getting the bargain basement education because you're a deplorable. You're not worthy of this higher tree of knowledge information we have. So we're going to give you the Liber. We're going to give you the free version. But all of the 7 sciences and the liberal education, all of it is Freemasonic, which goes all the way back into the original dragon courts and the secret societies, going all the way back to Cain. And it's this grooming, it's this dumbing down. So if we're not in the word, the most important question in the whole Bible, and every single thing in the world hinges on it. Your life, your happiness, your joy, your prosperity, how you define all these things, where you're going to spend eternity, is when Jesus said to Peter, "Who do you say I am?" If you get that question wrong, everything fails.
As you're talking, and I think you're right, that is the most fundamental question to be asking here, especially because if we're presented an Antichrist, it'll be something that is a palatable version of Jesus that people can, accept, who maybe aren't so grounded in the gospel. Like, oh, Jesus is real.
It's like such a bizarre juxtaposition of like, yeah, I what you just said there is really what I've been trying to do and get at since I've been on this journey. Is like, I'm trying to understand the personality and the nature of God. You do that by talking to him, by reading the Bible. You do that by fellowshipping with other people that can explain things to you. But it's like, we need to define that. So that definition is super important. But on the other hand,
that's an important definition. Yeah.
Wait, to know God? We had to define that. Is that what you're saying? Because ultimately, that's what this whole thing is about. Because to be fair, Judas, even you alluded to John the Baptist, like these dudes had the scriptures, right? And I think what they were so confused about was the 2 comings. Like we look back now, we're like, oh yeah, of course there's 2 comings. Of course that's what the end of Isaiah 52 and Isaiah 53 is about. That was his first coming. And then, these other things about him, like controlling the planet, setting up an empire like on planet Earth. Of course, that's his second coming. These dudes like were in the scriptures and had no clue, but they had the incorrect
definition of the scripture because they're using the scripture to fit something that their preconceived narrative that they wanted to happen, maybe from passed down word or maybe from their current strifes or whatever was going on politically of the day. and it doesn't work
But
like
our
that.
goal of scripture has to be to get into communication with God.
Yeah, because we're probably still not right. We're
That's what I was
probably
gonna
still
say.
not right about what we're
Yeah.
reading and interpreting. But as time unfolds, things make a little bit more sense. And you have to be able to go left or right with what you like how Vicki opened up this conversation, like how we've previously thought. Like I have to be okay with that dying off. And if God has revealed something new to me, that's fine. But I have to be ready to move in that direction. Otherwise, I'm just going to be stuck here. And I don't want to call myself a Judas, but what are the ramifications of being stuck in your thinking?
Well, this is why it's careful to not lean on your own understanding. I mean, not only did they have scripture, but they had Jesus. And they were still, he was literally there. They were high-fiving him and they still got it wrong. So like
we're 2,000 years past it, or I mean, maybe more. But
well, it makes me wonder what things we're currently getting wrong, grossly misinterpreting. But one of the things that's really fascinating to me,
grossly, but are we intentionally misinterpreting? Like, I think it's okay to it's all right if we get something wrong, but if you intentionally misinterpret it because it doesn't fit to your previous narrative,
your party lines, you're saying you want this to fit.
Party lines is a good description, but more like your interests, whatever your interests are at any given moment, whether it's party lines or it's you want to be in a certain group or you have a narrative that you want to protect, whatever your interests are, if they supersede the gospel, if they supersede the truth, then you're pretty well screwed.
It's like a constant reassessment of, well, what are my interests? What am I doing?
Just the truth.
Every time we sit down here.
Anything other than that, it's dangerous, dude. Going into the scripture with any like preconceived, like my doctrine is this, or my denomination believes this, or cemetery school taught me that. Like anything other than, hey, Lord, I just want to know whatever you want to show me.
Yeah.
It's just super
whatever
dangerous.
you want to show me, however I can serve. If you reveal a thing to me, that's dope. I'm content with anything you reveal. I want to know, I'll pursue, but I'm not going to lean on my own understanding. Like it's a constant thing because especially now as a conspiracy theorist, there's all this vindication getting tossed around, which is super tempting. It's super dangerous, right? If the Epstein files come out, if disclosure comes out, anything that is big and of that nature, you could easily look over and go like, look how right I was. Look how right I was, which I'll do that. And I'll do it as a joke. Like I'll do it. I'll walk around and I'll do it to my wife. And I'm like, babe, look how smart your husband is. Look at how smart, look how much stuff I knew. Isn't it cool that I knew all this stuff? And she goes, yeah, baby, it's cool. But like, you have to curb that because that thing is like, what you're saying is like, look how great my understanding is. And that's like one step away from like, I can lean on this.
Yeah. Think about like the scribes, right? Like the scribes and Pharisees, like the scribe was a commentator. It's the same thing that we call a commentator today. Like the commentators of Jesus' day crucified him. I guarantee those dudes could go to the scripture and
justify it.
Prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that that's not the Messiah.
Exactly.
Guaranteed, bro.
Yeah. That's a crazy thought, right?
Here's a strange thing though. So you look back, like we were saying, at those groups of antiquity, and they were worshiping these gods, and these gods made them dependent. Right. So it's like they gave them the systems, right? Which I do think is like as above, so below, as in heaven, so on earth, or vice versa, as on earth, so in heaven. Which way is it? I don't know which way it is, but same thing, right? So these systems that we have on earth are an emulation of like these heavenly systems, right? And so, these entities give them the systems, they give them the technologies, they make the people dependent on them. The people give them worship, they give them sacrifice. And then you look at our modern day government, it's very much the same thing, right? They provide through like welfare and everything, all these systems that make you dependent. You sacrifice endless amounts of babies in the, what would you call it? What's the
it's called, what you're describing is called prostitution.
No, but there's a colloquial terminology, healthcare, but it's reproductive care. There we go. Which is such a funny terminology. But through all this reproductive care, you're sacrificing these babies, you're dependent on the government is giving you these technologies. So it's the same system, it's just decentralized, where it was centralized in like a group of entities. Now the entities have taken a back seat and they're using man to orchestrate, but it's the exact same thing. If they do the disclosure, it's going to be the same thing as the old system, where now you have these entities and they're giving you systems and they're giving you technologies. It is literally a repeat. I always use the example of Childhood's End, Arthur C. Clarke. In that book, well, I only watched it because I can't read, but in the show, these entities come and they introduce these systems and they introduce these technologies and they create a utopia, and they don't reveal themselves to mankind. And then mankind falls into such a false sense of security because how much of a utopia has been created. These things must be good. Eventually they say, we will reveal ourselves in this many years. When that time comes, the entities reveal themselves. they're demons. But it's like, how funny is that? It's the same exact system of dependency, of imparting knowledge and wisdom, of sharing technologies, of sacrifice, right, to these entities. It is exactly the same system. Now we just don't get to see them. And the big trick is we're going to get to see them again, and people are going to fall for it again.
Yep. You know, I know I'm opening a can of worms here, and I'm really not meaning to, but
Let's go.
it's just perfect. So by way of just going off of what Matt was saying, if we go into the scripture trying to see it as a proof text for our denomination, instead of jumping off the cliff and seeing what it really means. So Jesus is our example in the garden, okay? Or in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he was praying, right? He was saying, okay, God, I know this has been the plan from the beginning, but now that I'm a few hours away from it, if there's any plan B here, just let me know now. Okay. So Jesus was thinking, maybe there's an option that I don't have to go through any suffering at all. Then when he got onto the cross, he's not dead yet. He's suffered some, he's been beaten, he's got the crown of thorns, he's in pain. Then a temptation comes before him. And the Bible and our doctrine doesn't word it this way. It doesn't ascribe it directly to Satan. But the crowd says, save yourself. End this right now. End it early. Get off the cross. You don't so now we have a second option for the cross. Okay, God, maybe just spare me from any suffering at all. Maybe Satan says I can get him to come off the cross in the middle. So he kind of did his thing, but he doesn't have to suffer the whole thing. And then there's a third option of you're going to see it through to the end. You're going to go through all of it. The full cup of God's wrath is going to fall on you. This is the same scenario that we're painting for our eschatological options. We can, God, if there's any way, let this cup pass. I don't want my, foot to hit a stone. I don't want to break a nail. I don't want to go through any pain at all. If there's anything that we can do. Right. Then we've got the hey, come down off the cross. Dude, it's been 3.5 years. You've been eating, beans and water for the oh, you poor Christian. You've proved yourself to me, and I'm going to save you now in mid-trib, right? And then we've got the option of no, you're going to go all the way to the end, and you're going to take your last breath, and it's going to come down on you. And so the way that Jesus provided an example for us was by saying, okay, God, best case scenario, this is the one I would pick. Let's just scrap this right now. There's got to be a better way. Okay. Then Jesus said, I could just come down off my cross in the middle of this and get out the laser beam, zap them all dead, laugh over their corpses, and I win, you idiots. And I was right. That's the human way, right? What Jesus did in the garden was he said, maybe there's a chance I don't have to suffer at all. Maybe there's a chance that maybe the Father will do for me what he did for Abraham. Maybe there'll be a scapegoat. Maybe I will go all the way up the mountain with my son and have that fear in my heart. And then in the 11th hour, you're certainly, I'm your son. Certainly you're going to do for me what you did for Abraham. There's a possibility. All things are possible, right? And what Jesus did after weighing all the options is the theology that left the garden with him was, I know you can do all things. Not my will, but yours be done. And so the way I frame eschatology, you're never going to hear Vicki saying I'm pre, mid, or post trib, or or all the little I'm a pan tribber, it'll all pan out in the end and all this nonsense, right? So here's the deal. I know that whether he comes before the end times, in the middle of the end times, or at the end of the end times, or that before the bowls of wrath, or till the very end, whatever, I know that whatever he's picked, he's going to give me everything I need to survive it and keep my faith intact. I know that if the worst case scenario is suffering, that he's going to prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. He's going to set my feet on a rock. He is going to he's going to make sure that as I'm going through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. This goes back to what Topher was saying. I'm in the middle of death, the last enemy, the thing that all humanity fears. I am in the hand of death right now, and I have no fear. That's what we're promised. Whether it's a near-death experience or a real death experience, in the throes of death, we won't fear. So who cares if he comes at the end? If he is by our side, if that's what he won on the cross, was the keys to death and Hades, where he says to the thief on the cross, today you'll be with me in paradise. In other words, I will escort you to the gates of death. You're still going to die. I'm not pulling you off the cross. You're still going to like suffer a heart attack and your lungs are going to collapse. I'm not saving you from it. I'm not taking you off the cross. But I have promised now, because of your faith, that when you die and you pass over to that other side, I'm going to take your hand and I'm going to be your personal escort to the gates of death. And if any accusers are there, it's not going to matter. So we have all of this evidence in scripture that he's never going to leave us or forsake us, and that we will have fearlessness in the face of death. And so my question about this eschatology is, who cares? When he comes back? He's coming back.
Yeah.
Same.
That's huge, man. I've never heard it put like that. That was a really fascinating contrast to what Jesus went through. That's actually like that's huge. That's
not my will, but your will. Like that's his life in one sentence.
Even this idea though of how it correlates to, you know, people's desires for a pre-trib or a mid-trib, and whether or not you think you could back it scripturally, it's like that's a fascinating contrast.
Yeah, but if you really love the Lord, you would kind of hate to get taken up in a pre-trib, bro. Like before like the craziest stuff on the planet ever goes down. Like you're like, no, I want to be around for that.
No, as funny as that is, I agree. You know, I often think like I didn't spend all my life learning a bunch of crazy stuff and then coming to Christ just to like take the first bus out.
Yeah,
just seems
totally.
like
which is whatever. He can do whatever he wants.
No, yeah, whatever.
It seems like he'd rather stick around during that.
I'm gonna ask him.
I know.
To be in the most wild story.
I'd rather have the backstage pass than the nosebleed seats.
Yeah.
Same.
I want to put a pin in it there. I think that's a great way to end the episode, Vic. You know, I guess actually before we do, I have one final question. Are you having fun, Vicki Joy Anderson?
I am, man. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. If I can just testify to how awesome Jesus is, you know, not everybody can pursue their dreams. Like not everyone can be the professional baseball player and the rock star, right? We need people to do everything. But, you know, all I wanted to do since second grade was be a writer. So second grade. And then in fifth grade, I absolutely knew it for a fact. I went to college. I got the writing degree. It's what I wanted to do my whole entire life. And, you know, where I'm at now, the particular niche I'm in, and doing the spiritual warfare kind of stuff, every single thing that I'm equipped to do right now, I'm equipped to do because the first 20, 30 years of my life was very, very, very difficult.
The refining fire.
Yep. It was the refining fire. It was the crucible. And so, you know, it looked for a long time like, you know, things aren't going to pan out. But I see that Jesus cared so much about that little second grader at the poetry table writing haikus that he's like, I am going to make sure that as you get old and as you grow and you start to, that the cares of the world start choking out this high vision that I can use for my glory. I'm gonna hold you to this prayer and this desire. Long after you don't even care anymore, I'm gonna bring it to fruition. And let me tell you guys, the day that I got to quit my corporate job that was killing me in every single way, and like I said, I know God doesn't make every single little dream come true. You know what I mean? But I am absolutely loving my life. The last 4 years has been everything I ever dreamed about. And when I think about all the surgeries and the bullying and the people that wouldn't let me sit by them on the bus and the Icky Vickies and the Freddy Kruegers and the Frankensteins and the Scarface and all the crap I had to go through, it's like, bring it on, bring it on, man. Because you know what? Most of the people by my age, they're burned out, they're tired, they're disillusioned, they've grown tired. And, you know, what do we look forward to once the few things in life have happened? I've had my kids, I got my house, I got my first car, I had the job, and now I got the grandkids, and, you know, then what, right? And I just love the fact that when we trust him and we wait on his timing and we're okay with his will, and we let patience have its perfect work. I love that verse in James. That's what I can do with my free will, instead of barging ahead and quickening the pace because God's not moving fast enough. I can use my free will to submit under his hand and his timing, and he will then bring into fruition everything I've ever dreamed and more.
Amen.
Excellent.
Amen.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
I would eat another bag of dumpster donuts if it meant that I knew I was going to end up here. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Vicki.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
I
you,
really
Vicki.
appreciate it.
It's been
Thank you,
incredible.
guys.
Yeah.
Topher, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah,
man.
brother. Thanks for
this
sticking
is-
around.
This is my pleasure. It's so nice to meet you, Vicki.
Hey,
You
Matt.
too, both you guys.
Thank you, Matt.
No, thank you, Raven.
Whatever, man.
No, Vicki, you crushed. This was like so awesome. I didn't.
Hey, I get the
Hey,
last word.
no,
This is
we're
Are
my
you
sorry.
side.
are you
Last
flattering
word.
me? Are you flattering me like my
Stop
chatbot?
flattering Vicki, all right? Jeez, man. What's the matter with you?
Guys, thank you for hanging
Rock.
out. Another great day of podcasting. And yeah, just bringing, man, I don't know what else to say. Obey, submit, and comply. Goodbye.
What?
They bred with dark.